Welcome to Austin Stories, some nasty HOA Karen pro-revenge today. Get ready. And by the way, all my videos are in podcast form, so if you want to listen on that way, just search the Austin Stories podcast on your local provider or check out the link in this video for a description. Get ready. Become the worst neighbor and HOA board member ever? Lose your job and HOA. Posted by Dogalagapoo. Let me start by saying, never purchase a house in an HOA. It is a complete mess that should be regulated and illegal. If I knew about HOAs when I bought my first home, I would have never purchased my first home in one. Me and my wife purchased our first home when we were 24 and 25. We spent months looking at houses and areas and tried to find a forever home in a good district for potential future kids and so on. We finally found a perfect one at a decent price. At first, everything was great. Super nice neighborhood and decent neighbors. Well, a few months after buying the house, we rented an RV to go on a trip, and we parked it in the driveway for the 3 days leading up to the trip so we could pack it and so I could learn how half the things in it worked. Well, this is when we learned that HOAs are absolutely crazy, and our neighbor was on the board of our local HOA. Within an hour of it being parked, he got home and stormed over, demanding that we remove it from his neighborhood or he would have it towed and fine us for every hour it was there. Myself, being the average and normal person, told him kindly to screw off and to get out of my driveway, and told him if he returns, I'll call the cops because he was screaming like a madman inches from my face. About 3 hours later, a big rig tow truck shows up and he walked up like he was a god and handed me a plain envelope with a letter inside that pretty much said, "By the order of the HOA, this RV is to be towed," and a fine of $1,500 for violating their rules. While Mr. Crazy board member might not listen to reason, the tow truck guy they found wasn't so fond of entering my driveway and towing a vehicle when I told him that if he comes on the property, I'll call the cops. Once the tow truck driver decided that he's done being involved in this mess and he left, the neighbor goes even more crazy and storms off. I call my friend to get his dad's number because he's an attorney to ask him about this insane letter and the fine I just received and to ask him some legal advice. After speaking to his father, he told me to come down, write him a $500 check, and bring along all the papers that I received when purchasing the home and the current letter that I just received. The next day, he had a very friendly letter sent to my neighbor and the HOA board, basically telling my neighbor to screw himself in legal terms and to leave us and our property alone. I then continued to receive fines of $1,500 a day in plain envelopes not postmarked stuffed into my mailbox that I then turned over to my friend's father, and each time he sent another set of letters and contacted USPS to report the incidents. Turns out, putting mail into people's mailbox is a crime. Who knew? Well, we decided to go on our week-long trip across the state and mildly, forget about it all. Kind of upset that I had to spend $500 to have an attorney send letters, but that's what they do. Fast forward to us returning from the trip and the RV back in our driveway for 2 days so we can unload and clean and then return it. Again, each day, more envelopes stuffed into our mailbox, and more visits to our attorney, and more letters sent, and more incidents reported to the U.S. Postal Service. Well, here is where the fun really begins. Turns out, Mr. Crazy finally gives me a summons to appear before the board. My attorney said this is crazy illegal because what they've done is use what looks like an actual legal document improperly to summon me to the board. Another $500 to the attorney, and we wait for the date that they made, a Tuesday at 10 a.m. They attempt to keep my attorney out of the room on some board privacy rule, but they quickly shut the heck up when he begins going over their own rules that they are violating to them. Deep in this HOA book are some very nicely worded rules and stuff outlining about what makes board members ineligible and how they cannot serve if they commit certain infractions. Well, guess what Mr. Crazy Neighbor has done? Committed several of them, all documented. Also, the cherry on top is that if 51% of the HOA members vote to dissolve the HOA, it all goes away. Well, it happens that my wife worked part-time from home during this mess and had all the free time in the world to begin a disband the HOA campaign. Over the course of the next 2 months, she went around and really began to get to know our neighborhood really well. Turns out, a lot of people dislike the HOA and the power-hungry seniors who act like dictators that run it. The HOA attempted to stall everything by holding no meetings, another HOA violation, and began their own campaign trying to change HOA rules to keep from being ousted, and a fairly racist flyer and letter to everyone explaining the dangers of not having an HOA and all the black people, African American and Mexican people, that will move in and take over or sell drugs and so on, that our houses would become much less valuable and everything else they could try. Turns out, it's extremely fun to use someone else's rules against them. The neighborhood even started a fund that paid us back what it cost us to get the attorney started and the continued costs that he had. A few weeks after their failed fear campaign and being forced to hold a meeting, a vote was called by using their own rules. The HOA was no more, and all the remaining funds were to be dispersed back to the homeowners and the members equally. This never happened. Turns out, somehow, the HOA used all their funds in the course of the last 2 months. About half of the former board members sold their homes and moved, including Mr. Crazy Neighbor. I've spent 3 hours trying to find old news articles because it was reported on mostly due to the racist letters by the HOA, but it was too long ago to find anything. Moral of this whole mess: don't buy a home in an HOA, and if you do, plan to hire an attorney. See, I like the due diligence that OP did here to really just research and find out the real rules and not just fall into their fear and scare tactics. They tried to scare OP out of this with this whole RV thing. And I mean, literally, if you got $1,500 fines in the mail every single day, that would wear down most people. It honestly would. I know I'd be like, oh crap, man. But this was not a worry for our OP. And then he went on the attorney and took the whole legal route, really doubling down and knocking it out. And then it turns out that these guys are sending some really horrible actions and words to other races. That's terrible. And you know what happens? They get shut down, moved out of the area, can't even hear from them, can't find them anymore. HOA's gone and disabled. All the Karens and Kevins are out of here. Way to go, OP. HOA board tries to force me to remove my trampoline. I get them removed from the board instead. Posted by Hi Internet Friend. Hello. I put a trampoline in my backyard in early 2017. I have 3 young boys and we've enjoyed it immensely. My neighbor, the HOA president at the time, went to sell his house in the spring of 2018, and his realtor said that the trampoline in my backyard might be a detriment to getting top dollar for his home. So he convinced the neighbor on the other side of my house to complain as well. Out of the blue, I received a message from the HOA property manager that the neighbors complained and that I would need to submit a form to get it approved. Intermission. What's sad is that I was friendly with both of these people. They had been in my home. They could have talked to me face to face. With one of the neighbors, I paid for our shared fence at her request, since her neighbor on her other side wouldn't contribute to their shared fence, another board member and human piece of garbage. I would have been willing to dig a hole for the trampoline to hide it more, or to purchase a new one with elastic bands rather than springs to make it quieter. Both of those options are cheaper than getting a lawyer. But nobody asked. Nobody came to me to have a face-to-face, heart-to-heart discussion about their concerns. A few ironies. These are 5-bedroom homes. Clearly, people with kids are gonna move in, and they're gonna be noisy in their backyard with or without play equipment. The guy who sold his home smoked like a chimney. I don't think my trampoline should have been his top concern. The people who ended up buying his home are a great family with 2 kids who don't care about toys in other people's backyards. My neighbors have raised kids to adulthood, one of them 2 very active boys. When I pointed this out to her, the words that actually came out of her mouth were, "I know it's challenging to raise boys, but we are at different stages of our lives," as if that justified her trying to screw me. Back to the story. I filled out the form and then sent it in. The Architectural Review Committee denied it a month later. I appealed the decision, and then I met with the board in August. They sent me a letter and said it was in violation. I asked which rules I violated. They never sent me a letter, so then I asked again a week ago. The property manager was adamant that she had sent the letter, but I asked for proof. She forwarded an email where she put my name in the to field after the fact. I had a strong suspicion that it was after the fact due to the following reasons. An HOA meeting was mentioned that never took place. The responses to my questions varied in color, indicating that they had been edited at different times. She responded immediately to my request for proof by indicating she would forward the email, but then took an hour, presumably editing a draft that she never sent. She cited a rule early in the email, but then cited an additional rule later that superseded the first. The first cited rule could have simply been omitted. The message was not marked as forwarded message at the top, and the sent time didn't include seconds. None of these things are a smoking gun, but they are suspicious. I asked the other people in the to field if they received a copy of the email with my name in the address field. The only honest member of the board replied that he hadn't. The rest remained silent because they didn't want to look like they and the property manager had dropped the ball. Intermission. If you're curious why the board didn't like my trampoline, here is the rationale provided in the letter that was never sent. Due to the close proximity of the homes to each other and the small yards, the trampoline is unsightly to the homes surrounding it. Realtors for those homes surrounding you have stated that it is a detraction to selling homes and is lowering the home values of those around it. There have also been neighbor complaints regarding the noise level, which creates those homeowners to be unable to enjoy their homes. They are also unable to use certain portions of their homes while the trampoline is being used. My kids all weigh under 35 pounds. They go to bed at 7 p.m. and they don't jump on the trampoline in the morning before 10 a.m. My neighbors bought homes 10 feet away from mine. What did they expect? Back to the story. The year-end meeting was scheduled for yesterday, and 4 board positions were up for election. I got 3 of my friends on the street to run with me. I went door to door every day for a week, and I spoke with the majority of homeowners about their discontent with the street. I got 1/3 of the community to sign proxy forms stating that I would vote on their behalf. I went to the meeting last night and put these fools on blast. I listed calmly all the ways the current board was failing the community and my plan to right their wrongs. The vote was a landslide in favor of myself and my friends getting elected. One awful board member remains, but he is the minority. We fired the property manager who was uncommunicative and flat out dishonest. The trampoline endures. The only bummer is now I have to manage a street which includes some legit crazy people. But this whole episode has convinced my wife that we will never live in an HOA again, which I count as a huge victory in addition to the trampoline remaining where it is today. You know, I think we see time and time again, the HOAs are trying to take advantage of the members. They try to put fear in their hearts and strike with that fear to make them say, okay, fine, I just give up, you win, don't hurt me, don't do anything. They'll even get others in on this just to rope them all in and try to convince them that it's wrong. They'll gaslight, they'll gang up on you, there'll be narcissist behavior to convince you that you are wrong and they are right, and then gang up on you there. But OP had enough, knew the reasons why this trampoline was okay, knew the falsehoods in that email and was able to bust it out. It was no smoking gun, but it was enough to say, hey, this is not right. And then OP convinced his wife that they were the winners, and then boom, just delivered that just pro-revenge. Way to go, OP. Sued my HOA, fired Karen and her entire company. Here's why. Click the video on your screen so you do not miss this insane fallout. If you like this story, you'll love this one as well. See you there.